Hey, happy Saturday afternoon, people. It's about a little after 2 p.m. over here. I don't know my plans for this afternoon, but I know my plans later on tonight will be taking a little walk, listening to some cool club music that I have downloaded here. I guess for the time being, that will be my club nights until all the clubs here in Texas start to reopen again. But until then, that's what I'm going to have to do from now on. Well, I could probably take a bike ride as well. It doesn't matter. As long as I got some good club music happening. I got some Speedy J downloaded on my MP3s and some other things there. Plus some classics I have on my phone here that I could listen to. But enough of that. I wanted to discuss this little story I came across. I first found out about this on Twitter. I know Joe Cronin tweeted it out, and he was like, holy shit. And they're doing this in Germany. And while myself, I'm saying I'm not surprised. They did it here in the States a couple of times in selected cities. One of them, Lansing, Michigan, my home state. And now they're doing it overseas, which is, of course, protesting against the coronavirus measures being placed upon them by city officials. Now, this is from the DW.com. I'm going to read the whole article here. Some 20,000 protesters have rallied, with many ignoring the social distancing rules and labeling the coronavirus pandemic a false alarm. A surge in cases has prompted calls for tougher measures against COVID-19 rule breakers. So most likely, if they see anybody breaking any of these rules, they might be fined a certain amount of money or placed under a city ordinance or something, most likely, after all this. Despite infections soaring once again in Germany and fears of a potential second wave, tens of thousands of protesters gathered in Berlin on Saturday. Must have been earlier this morning, I'm presuming, because they have different time zones. It may be 2 p.m. afternoon over here, but it may be 10 p.m. at nighttime over there, most likely. With very few masks in sight, many of the crowd whistled and cheered as they marched from Brandenburg Gate to the German capital's Tiergarten Park. I hope I pronounced that right. Demonstrators held up homemade signs with slogans saying, "Corona, false alarm," "We are forced to wear a muzzle," "National defense instead of vaccination," and most promptly, "End the Corona panic." They're asking for fundamental rights being brought back into place. Within a few hours, however, plans to continue the rally along a wide boulevard that runs through the park were halted after a police complaint. Berlin police said they had launched legal actions against the organizer of the protest over non-respect of hygiene rules. The rally only registered at 1,000 participants, but at one point, police estimated that 20,000 people were in attendance. In the late afternoon, police used loudspeakers to order the protesters and the demonstrators to leave the area peacefully. Of course, that, its result is going to come out of that. Boo, screw you, fuck you, blah. Officers also removed several organizers from the stage. Yep, they had a stage giving speeches, obviously, to shouts and boos from those attending the rally. They even used physical force when one person refused to comply. When the attendees failed to move on, police told them that they were committing misdemeanors, which led to further yelling and booing from the people. Now, reporting from the scene earlier today, DW's political correspondent, Leonie von Hammerstein, described how coronavirus skeptics had gathered for their Day of Freedom, the end of the pandemic. They're thinking that this is a government conspiracy, like some of the protesters here in the States were believing. She also noted that a counter-protest was taking place, which is kind of odd, with many citizens angry at those citizens breaking the rules. So these people have gathered up there to have their say-so, saying this is not a government conspiracy. This is not to keep us down. This virus is real. Look at some of our relatives who have passed on. Look at that singer John Prine who died from it. Herman Cain was supposedly died from COVID-19 a couple of days ago. Now, to quote unquote, the difference is the counter-protesters are wearing face masks and are also keeping the current social distance, 6 feet apart, of course, whereas the other protesters are not. And they were also shouting things like, the pandemic never happened. And there was an interesting standoff between the counter-protesters and the protesters. Oh, a little civil war going on over there. The EPA reported that some of the counter-protesters, who dubbed themselves Grandmas Against the Extreme Right, shouted "Nazis out" at those taking part in the main protesters. So that's it so far. Now, I'm not surprised about this myself, as I mentioned. Figure people are going to be pissed off at staying at home all the time, keeping themselves apart, 6 feet or more, wearing a mask when they have to go outside, either have a brew or go grocery shopping. They want their lives back, most of all work-wise. A lot of people were laid off of work. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people cannot get work online and shit like that. Some people don't know how to work online. They're used to physical work. You know, but at the same time, you got to keep in mind this pandemic is real. It's still out there. I mentioned one time that the grocery store where my sister works at had their first case of COVID-19 with one of their staff. And I think there was also a couple cases in the Conroy area where I'm at right now. And of course, because of all the protesting and rioting over the George Floyd killing, along with the protests over this pandemic measuring, cases in COVID-19 have re-risen in various cities, in various states. I'm going to leave it all up to God. That's all I'm going to say, you know. There are a lot of times I wish this pandemic never happened. We would have our lives back and everything. I'm hoping this pandemic ends sooner than expected. Now, there was a doctor out of Houston, and I heard the videotape, and I've heard the audio tape as well, of this woman saying all you need to take is zinc every day, that COVID-19 can be cured with the proper medications. It's just these idiot doctors, you know, trying to make us fearful, fall into their hands, all that shit. We've seen it many times before. I cannot really say no more, folks. But God bless all of us and help us out through all this bull that's going on right now. That's all I'm going to say. I thought I'd give you that little tidbit there. I'm Dr. Earl. Thank you for watching. Hit that like button. Leave your comments below. And subscribe to my channel. Peace out.